You know, when we talk about moving physical goods from point A to point B, we kind of have this inherent expectation of simple geometry.
Right, like a straight line.
Exactly. A straight line. I mean, you put a pallet on a truck, you drive the truck, it arrives. Stripped down to its basics, logistics is supposed to be just distance and time.
It's a very comforting way to view operations, honestly. We naturally want supply chains to be linear, visible and neatly categorized on a spreadsheet.
But then you step into the reality of running a supply chain in Australia right now in 2026, and that straight line just completely shatters.
Oh, absolutely.
Suddenly that clean geometry is broken by this knotted mess of thousands of kilometers of detours, unprecedented extreme weather alerts, and, frankly, a labyrinth of compliance red tape. Generic software just assumes time and distance are the only variables you have to manage. But in this landscape, compliance and risk act as physical, immovable barriers on your map.
And that tension right there is exactly what makes our focus today so critical. It's the absolute definition of operational muddy waters. The data we are looking at reveals two entirely different business realities playing out at the exact same time.
Yeah.
On one hand, transport insolvencies have more than doubled recently. But on the exact same board, the early adopters of custom AI solutions are reporting up to 61% operational efficiency gains.
That is just a staggering divide. So, a huge welcome to everyone listening. If you are an Australian business owner or a C-level executive tuning in through the C9 business page, we know the intense pressure you are under right now. You are expected to hit these aggressive growth targets while simultaneously trying to control spiraling expenses in a totally unforgiving environment.
It's a tough spot to be in.
It really is. So I'm Lex.
And I'm Vera from the C9 Podcast Show.
And welcome to this deep dive. Today, we are exploring exactly how custom AI-powered procurement and logistics software is transforming efficiency and ultimately rescuing profit margins.
To understand why AI is acting as such a fundamental game changer, we have to look closely at why the traditional, manual ways of doing things are breaking down so spectacularly. Because running an Australian supply chain right now is effectively operating on the highest difficulty setting.
Oh, without a doubt. It's expert mode.
Yeah.
First, you have the sheer vast geography. I mean, we are talking about grueling long-haul routes, like moving heavy equipment from Brisbane all the way across to Perth.
Yeah, that's what, over 4,000 kilometers?
Exactly. Over 4,000 kilometers of incredibly unforgiving terrain. And then you add in the unpredictable multi-billion-dollar weather events that regularly wash out major arterial highways. And compound all of that with systemic, persistent, skilled labor shortages in both driving and warehousing.
And those elements, the geography, the climate, the labor gaps, they do not just add linear costs. They act as massive multipliers on your baseline overhead. The consensus across the recent industry data is that fuel, labor, and transport costs are significantly outpacing freight rates. You are trapped in the middle, suffering massive margin compression. But there's a hidden layer to this pressure cooker that executives are wrestling with daily, and that is the escalating burden of data compliance.
Yes, specifically regarding the Security of Critical Infrastructure Act, the SOCI Act, and the updated Privacy Act regulations.
Exactly. The rules dictating how you handle, route, and store operational data have become incredibly strict. What we are seeing in the enterprise space is that generic cloud tools, the off-the-shelf software platforms many mid to large companies have relied on for the past decade, they often fail completely when it comes to data sovereignty.
Wait, really? Fail completely?
Yes, because they might efficiently route a truck on the surface, but behind the scenes, they are routing your sensitive supply chain data through offshore servers. That architectural flaw immediately exposes executives to severe regulatory risks and crippling penalties.
Okay, but wait, I have to challenge that premise for a second, because the supply chain software market is absolutely booming. I mean, it feels like every tech vendor out there is promising end-to-end visibility.
Sure, the marketing is definitely there.
Right, so if there is so much capital flowing into these platforms, why are businesses still struggling so badly? Why isn't a premium off-the-shelf system enough to plug these holes?
That is the crucial question.
Yeah.
And it leads directly into the trap of the one-size-fits-all mentality. Generic software is fundamentally built for a generic world. It's designed for European or North American markets where major metropolitan hubs are like 3 hours apart, not 3 days apart.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and when you rely on outdated legacy systems or generalized tools, you inevitably create deep data silos within your organization.
because your warehouse management system isn't natively speaking to your procurement software, which is completely disconnected from your transport management system.
Precisely. And when software cannot bridge those gaps automatically,
Yeah.
human beings have to step in and build the bridge manually.
Oh man, manual data entry.
Right. Your team creates procurement bottlenecks because they literally have to export data from one system into an Excel spreadsheet just to figure out what is actually happening on the ground.
And we both know how fast demurrage fees can decimate a margin when inland transport isn't perfectly synced up to collect containers at the port. If your data is siloed, your physical assets are going to be siloed.
It's a domino effect. The laggards, the companies clinging to these disjointed legacy systems, are bleeding capital on shipping delays. They are suffering from stockouts where they lack critical products to sell, while simultaneously suffocating under overstock of the wrong items.
Because they're guessing.
Exactly. Because their forecasting is based on historical, fragmented data rather than real-time insights.
As an executive, using generic, disjointed tools in a data-driven economy is basically choosing to wear a blindfold. You are trying to steer a massive cargo ship through a storm, but your instruments are feeding you telemetry from yesterday.
Which perfectly explains why the Australian supply chain software market is projected to grow at a 9 to 10% compound annual growth rate. That explosive growth isn't coming from companies buying more generic software licenses.
No.
It is being driven entirely by tech-enabled rivals who are upgrading to bespoke, custom AI solutions and aggressively taking market share from the laggards.
Okay, let's take that blindfold off and look under the hood. Let's trace a real-world scenario to understand how custom AI actually functions in practice. Because the insights we are exploring today are not about AI as some vague, futuristic buzzword. We are talking about customized, highly specific mechanisms.
Right, let's ground it in reality.
So let's imagine a logistics network responsible for moving highly specialized, multi-million-dollar turbine components for a mining operation up in the Pilbara.
That is a perfect stress test. Let's start at the very beginning of that journey, intelligent sourcing. In a legacy setup, sourcing that turbine component is highly manual. A procurement manager checks historical spreadsheets, calls a few trusted suppliers, and, makes a purchasing decision based on very limited visibility.
It's relationship-driven, which is great for trust, but terrible for navigating global complexity.
Right, but a custom AI system approaches sourcing completely differently. It ingests and analyzes vast global data sets simultaneously. It evaluates supplier risk profiles, monitors geopolitical stability in manufacturing regions, tracks raw material cost fluctuations, and runs predictive pricing models.
All at once.
All at once. It assesses hundreds of variables in seconds. But more importantly, because it is custom-built for an Australian context, it applies your specific regulatory filters.
So before a human being even sees a list of potential suppliers for that turbine component.
The AI has already interrogated those suppliers' APIs.
Wow. It has verified where their servers are located to ensure your SOCI Act compliance remains completely bulletproof. It filters out anyone who compromises your data sovereignty automatically.
Exactly. The mechanism here is algorithmic vetting at scale. This intelligence dramatically shortens procurement cycles and eliminates non-compliant risk entirely. The data shows this specific capability unlocks 5 to 15% pure procurement savings.
Just from better sourcing.
Yes. Simply by finding efficiencies and risk-adjusted pricing that a human could never manually calculate.
And that drops straight to the bottom line. Okay, so the AI has sourced our turbine component safely and compliantly. Now it has to actually get here. This brings us to real-time logistics optimization and this incredible concept of the digital twin.
The digital twin is arguably the most powerful conceptual shift in modern logistics. It is a complete dynamic virtual replica of your entire physical supply chain running continuously in a simulation environment.
Like a video game simulation.
Yeah, essentially. Instead of looking at flat data, your custom AI creates an interactive model.
So returning to our Pilbara turbine component, it's on a ship from a manufacturer in Southeast Asia, destined for a port in Western Australia. The digital twin isn't just tracking the ship's GPS coordinates.
Far from it. The AI is constantly monitoring global weather data, port congestion analytics, and secondary transport availability. It functions like a massive wargaming sandbox. Let's say it detects a severe cyclone forming off the coast that will delay the ship's docking by 4 days.
Wait, if the digital twin is simulating that 4-day delay, It's not just flagging a logistics problem, it's essentially acting as a financial forecasting tool.
Yes.
You are suddenly predicting cash flow variations because you know exactly when your capital is going to be tied up in stranded inventory and exactly how that delay impacts the mining operations output.
That is a brilliant deduction. It bridges the gap between logistics and finance.
Right.
Because you have a custom integration, the system calculates the financial impact of the drill site sitting idle for 4 days. And this is where we cross the threshold from predictive AI into what is known as agentic AI.
Agentic meaning it has agency. Like, it doesn't just watch the simulation, it actually takes physical action based on the simulation.
Precisely. Predictive AI tells you the storm will cause a 4-day delay and cost you $1 million in operational downtime. Agentic AI takes that insight and automatically executes a mitigation protocol.
Automatic.
Yes. Before your procurement manager has even logged on for the morning, the system has autonomously sourced a backup locally manufactured component in Perth. It is calculated that paying a 20% premium for the local part is vastly cheaper than halting the mining operation entirely.
And it actually issues the purchase order, like without a person clicking approve.
Yes. It securely issues the purchase order, books the overland freight to the Pilbara, and updates the digital twin to reflect the new reality. All while automatically logging the compliance trail to ensure the new domestic supplier meets every data residency requirement.
That is insane.
It is essentially a self-healing infrastructure.
That completely reframes how we think about resilience. The system absorbs the shock of the cyclone and reroutes the physical reality to protect the margin. And the operational efficiency gains tied to the 20 to 30% inventory reductions we're seeing in the reports, that makes total sense now.
Exactly, because you simply don't need to hoard massive amounts of just-in-case safety stock in regional warehouses if your software can actively maneuver around disruptions in real time.
You are replacing physical inventory with data confidence. And when you factor in the dynamic rerouting of the trucks themselves, like avoiding localized flooding or road closures on those grueling long hauls, businesses are realizing 5 to 20% logistics cost reductions, plus significant fuel saving.
It's a massive competitive advantage.
Okay, I have to push back here, though, because everything we just described sounds incredible. A self-healing, hyper-efficient, fully compliant nervous system for a multi-million-dollar operation. But if I am a C-level executive listening to this, and I look at my current setup, which is probably a Frankenstein monster of a 10-year-old ERP system, 5 different warehouse applications, and a dozen Excel workarounds, I'm probably terrified of what it takes to actually implement this.
You are anticipating the classic enterprise software nightmare.
Yeah.
The dreaded rip and replace.
Exactly. An executive is thinking, sure, I'd love a 61% efficiency gain, but I absolutely cannot afford to turn my business off for 8 months while a tech vendor tears out my foundation and installs a new digital brain. The downtime alone would bankrupt us.
And if we look at the historical data on large-scale IT transformations, that fear is entirely justified. But the critical distinction here, and what makes custom development by specialized Australian teams so fundamentally different, is that successful integration is never a rip-and-replace scenario.
So how do they actually untangle a legacy system without breaking the daily operations?
By building an intelligent middleware layer. Custom software development isn't about destroying your old ERP system, it's about abstracting it. Think of your old database as a secure, somewhat slow filing cabinet. It still holds your core financial ledgers.
Okay.
The custom AI is an intelligent layer built over the top. It handles all the complex thinking, the forecasting, and the routing, and then securely reads and writes only the necessary data back to your old ERP via specialized APIs.
Oh, I see. So the foundation stays intact, but you are upgrading the entire command and control structure above it.
Exactly. And the process follows a very strict, risk-mitigated roadmap. A reputable developer never starts by writing code. They begin with a deep readiness audit. They look at your API endpoints, they analyze your database schemas, and crucially, they identify the shadow IT.
Shadow IT being those rogue spreadsheets the floor managers use because the official software is too frustrating to navigate.
Right. The developers sit down in a collaborative discovery phase to map out exactly why those workarounds exist. They learn the unique quirks of your supply chain. Like, why do you route certain hazardous materials differently in Queensland versus Victoria? What specific reporting metrics does your CFO actually care about?
So it's about engineering the software to conform to the reality of the business, rather than forcing the business to conform to the rigid limitations of generic software.
And that philosophy dictates the rollout itself.
Yeah.
You don't launch everything overnight. You utilize phased integrations. You might start by exclusively automating the procurement verification we discussed earlier.
Keep it small.
Right. You let the system run, you validate the 5 to 15% cost savings, and you prove the ROI to the board in a controlled environment.
Which also brilliantly solves one of the biggest hurdles in any operational shift, which is human resistance. If you change a worker's entire ecosystem on a Monday morning, they will panic and reject it.
Absolutely.
But if you phase it in and they suddenly realize the AI is handling all the tedious compliance checks and manual data entry they despise, they become its biggest advocates.
The overarching objective is to empower your staff with actionable intelligence, not to overwhelm them with a new interface. Working with experienced, locally based developers means you get an architecture perfectly molded to local regulations and operational realities, completely bypassing the massive vendor horror stories we've all heard.
It all comes down to sophisticated risk mitigation. You are using the AI itself to mitigate the physical risks of operating in Australia, the weather, the distances, the supply shocks, and you are mitigating the digital risk by choosing a custom, phased integration approach rather than a traumatic overhaul.
That's a great way to summarize it.
So, bringing this vast landscape together for our listeners, how do we synthesize the ultimate takeaway from the state of logistics in 2026?
The defining conclusion is that custom AI procurement and logistics software has transcended being just an IT upgrade. It is now a strict strategic necessity.
A survival tool.
Exactly. The structural inefficiencies of the Australian market, the vast distances, the unpredictable climate, the high labor costs, the stringent data compliance laws, those factors are not going to soften. Custom AI is the only proven mechanism to convert those structural liabilities into a distinct competitive advantage. It is how you safeguard profitability and engineer genuine resilience into your operations.
It really is the deciding factor between a company that merely survives the pressure cooker and one that thrives in it, taking market share while competitors struggle with demurrage and stockouts. You simply cannot let outdated legacy systems dictate the ceiling of your potential. If you are an Australian business owner or sitting in the C-suite right now, the window to act before tech-enabled rivals lap you is closing. And that is exactly why you need to partner with C9.
They possess an intimate, specialized understanding of the specific friction points within Australian supply chains.
Absolutely. C9 is Australia's leading custom software, apps, integration, and database developer company. They don't push generic, off-the-shelf licenses that force you to compromise. They architect and engineer bespoke solutions tailored precisely to the DNA of your operations.
Which is what you need.
It is time to stop suffering through the limitations of disjointed tools. Head directly to their website right now. It is straightforward, www.c9.com.au. Reach out to their team for a collaborative consultation and take the first real step toward transforming your supply chain.
It is the single most effective way to take the blindfold off and gain total operational clarity.
I couldn't agree more. And while you are online, make sure you hit that follow button on the C9 Deep Dive Show. We unpacked critical, high-stakes operational strategies like this regularly. If you found clarity and value in our breakdown today, please share this deep dive with other business owners, partners, and C-level executives in your network who urgently need these insights to protect their margins.
Knowledge in this space is only truly powerful when it is shared and practically applied across your network.
Spot on. Now, before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over as you look at your own logistics map. We discussed agentic AI in detail today and how it is already capable of autonomously rerouting trucks and executing backup purchase orders to mitigate weather disruptions, all while strictly adhering to compliance laws.
Right, a capability that is actively reshaping the industry standard right now.
Exactly, but extrapolate that trajectory. If your custom AI is already acting as an intelligent, autonomous agent managing your internal resilience, how long until your customized supply chain software is autonomously negotiating complex contracts, dynamic pricing, and delivery terms directly with your supplier's AI platforms, completely without human intervention?
That is wild to think about.
The geometry of logistics may no longer be a straight line, but the future of this technology is arriving much faster than we think. Thanks for joining us.